Hey everyone, welcome back. This video is going to be about editing properties. So last video we were doing the if statements, else ifs and all that. And what we had were these 9 objects. We were checking the name if they were called object, and we were adding to the position of the object. So what this video is about is editing the properties of these parts. I'm going to show you what certain properties are, what certain values we have to give properties, and how to find all the different enumerations and all the different actual values that you have to set these to. So what I'm going to do first is just clean this up. I'm going to have 3 of each, or 1 of each. And what I'm going to look at is these properties in the properties widget here. So under our view tab, we'll have Explorer and properties. You want to open their properties. Oh, that one doesn't have a keybind, but Alt X is for the Explorer in my case. But pretty much, if we have a look at each part, you can see that brick color and color is changing there. And our name variable here is also changing. And our position here, those are different. Our origin position is also different. So origin position's that little dot in the middle there. What else is there? We've got Kenclide for all of them. Oh, anchored for all of them, sorry. And yeah. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be editing these properties and changing them to see what they do to the object. I won't go through all of them. You have to experiment yourself. But we will be doing it one by one, and this might be just like a quick 5-minute video. But let's start. So let's say all of these are anchored right now. So let's say I want to turn off the anchored property for one of these. So let's say this object here. How would I go about disabling anchored? Well, first we need to get the actual object, because this is the object that we want to change, and then we need to set this anchored to false. So if I click this anchored up here, you can see that property there changing to true and false on the right here. So this one here. You see, if I turn that off, that turns off. If I turn that on, that turns on. So we want to change this property to tell the physics system whether or not this object stays where it is or not. So if I run this right now, all of them are staying still because they're anchored. But if I turn the anchored off, they all fall because they're not anchored anymore. They're part of the physics. Alright, so let's see. I want to get this object itself. So make sure they're all anchored first. And this object here is the one I want to edit. So let's do workspace.object. So that's our actual object. And we want to change this anchored property. So I want to say dot anchored. So it's saying it's a boolean. So that's a true or false value. Determines whether a part is immovable by physics. So whether or not it stays still. And there's a code example here. We're going to skip that. But if I do dot anchored equals, we want to equal it to some value, true or false. We want to set this to false. So now it's not immovable, and the physics system will move it. So if I run that, our code changes it, and these ones are still anchored because that value is true. Now let's say we also want to make it go through everything that it touches. So if we have a look here, we have collision, we have Kenclide, KenTouch, and there's another one, if you turn off Kenclide, called KenQuery. We won't worry about them, we'll come back to that in the raycasting video. But KenQuery just basically means, can raycasts detect this part? And KenTouch means, does the .touched event work for this part? Can you set up a .touched event for this part? But in our case, we're going to look at Kenclide here. And if we hover over, it says, determines whether physical interactions with other parts are respected. If true, will collide and react with physics to other parts. If false, other parts will pass through instead of colliding. So this is saying if this value is false, it's going to fall through parts. Which is what we want. So if I do workspace.object.canCollide equals false, it's going to... So actually, let's turn it to false now, but we won't unanchor it yet. So if I run that, right now it looks okay. So let's put this part on top, and I'm going to unanchor this pastel orange one. If I unanchor it, it's going to fall through the part. If I come over here and try to do it to this one it's actually interacting with because can collide is true. If I turn can collide false, it's going to fall through. So what we'll be doing is turning this object's anchored to false. So that way it's going to be non-collidable and it's going to fall due to physics. And because can collide is false, it should fall through the world here. So if I run that, it'll go straight through base plate and it's going to drop into the void and destroy itself. So that's how you edit properties. You just do object.property equals whatever value it needs. So let's have a look at some other properties. So let's anchor all of them. So let's say I want to change this grey brick's color because this looks ugly. So let's do workspace.object. Now we have two ways we can change the color. We can use brickcolor.new. Oh, sorry, I should say we can use brick color or we can use color. So if I put brick color first, it requires a brick color, determines the cut of a part. And if we are looking at the code example here, it says part.brickcolor equals a brickcolor.new and then the brick color name. So we need to actually create a new brick color and give it the name of the brick color that we're looking for. So there's two ways you can find what the brick colors are. You can do it through code here, through the autocomplete. So if we do brickcolor.new, put strings, it will give you a list of everything here. Or you can go to the appearance tab here, click on the color here, and you get a color wheel sort of thing. Or you get a palette of colors that you can pick from. And let's say you like this yellow here, it's called new yellow. So then what we can do is change it back, and then we're going to put new yellow. And what this will do is, right now it's gray. Actually, that's wrong, gray. That one. Where's this one? That one. There we go. So medium stone gray is the default one. But let's say I want to change it to new yellow. I can do dot brickcolor equals brickcolor.new new yellow. And you can also see in the color that it's also changed to 255, 255, 0. That's RGB. Alright, so that's one way of doing it. Let's have a look at the color 3 way of doing it. So we'll go reference our object and we'll do dot color. So this one here equals what? If I click this little color palette here, we can see that we get a color selector here and a color spectrum. So let's say I want to pick that new yellow also. Let's just put this right to the top like so. What do we see in the values here? We see red, green, blue. So it's the RGB matrix, but also we have hue, saturation, and value, and we also have a HTML color tag. So there's different ways you can get colors. You can put a HTML tag, you can do hue, saturation, value, HSV, or you can do RGB, red, green, blue. In our case, we're going to do RGB, so we need to do color 3 dot. So if we have a look at color 3 here, we've got a couple of options. We can do from RGB, from hex, from HSV. What we want to do is from RGB. Also just to note, .new does RGB by itself. So the difference between these two is color3.new uses values from 0 to 1. 0 to 1. Which would represent 255 times by that number. But we don't want to worry about that. So pretty much color3.new uses 0 to 1 rather than 0 to 255. While color3.fromRGB does within the range 0 to 255. So if I have a look at this new color here, it says red 255, green 255, blue 255. So if I press OK there, we can see 255, 255, 0. So it's bright yellow. If I switch this to .new, it's going to show up there, but we get this exclamation mark here. Now the reason for that is because it's out of the range. This is supposed to be between 0 and 1. So if I try and play this, you can see it turns black. and if we have a look at the color here, it says 110. That doesn't seem correct though. It's meant to be new yellow. But if I try set the values there, it breaks. So what we need to do is stop the game. We need to go and divide it by 255. So 0 divided by 255, I believe, let's see if that returns 0. That returns 0. So that pretty much says, okay, divide it by 255, which is the highest number, and that will change it to a decimal from 0 to 1. So now we get new yellow because the color is 255. The reason why the color is 255 is because .new automatically goes from 0 to 1 range to 0, or I should say 1, I know, yeah, sorry. From 0 to 1 to 0 to 55 range. So it's automatically going to times the decimal number by 255. So let's have a look at the RGB values here. Local color equals color3.new them. If we do print color, we should get each value of that color. So you can see that color is 110. So that's saying 1 red, which is 255 red, 1 green, which is 255 green, and then 0 blue, which is 0. However, if I do times 255, that number, and I run that, oh, I'm gonna have to arithmetic. Oh, it doesn't support. Okay, we'll have to do it individually. But if I do RG times 55, color3 dot B times 255, we're gonna get the color decimal times 255, the green decimal times 255, and the blue decimal times 255, and we'll get 255, 255, 0. And then if I change this to something like 127, 127, so it's halfway between 0 and 1, and I run this, we're going to see it gives us the 127, but if we actually go back and print color again, we're going to get 0.498, 0.498, 0. So it's pretty much halfway between black and that new yellow color, but also they can be represented in two ways, 0.498 or 127, 1270. I think I went over the board here with colors and all that, but we'll just continue on. Next we have materials. So under our material tab here, we can select a option here. Now the problem with this is there's two ways you can set it. You can set it to the name of the material, or you can use a enum or an enumeration to have a predefined value determine what you are picking. So to make this less complicated, let's have a look at workspace.object.material. When I type it, you can see it says enum.material determines the texture and default physical properties of the part, or physical properties of the part. So if I click tab there to autocomplete and we have a look at enum.material, we have a table where air is at enum.material, aluminium and so on is enum materials. So what I can do is say, okay, in that enum.material, I'm going to pick something. And I can pick a material inside here. Now, not all of these materials will work, because most of these, or some of these are for terrain only. So I believe pavement, that's terrain only, so it applies to terrain only. Applies to base part only. So you can see that some are terrain and some are just normal materials for parts or base parts. But if I do that there, we should go from material plastic to smooth plastic. So if I run the game there, you can see that our surface smoothened out. And if we have a look at the material here, we have smooth plastic. And then using the arrow keys here, just up and down, you can have a look at the different materials that you can apply. So let's say we want to make the part look like this. I'm going to copy the color here, and we need to set the material to neon. So let's do both things here. So we're going to set the material to neon, and we're going to set the color to color3.fromRGB, and we're going to set it to this orangey color. And if I run the game again, CGA brown and neon. So our color matches. So we can set the properties of the part through scripts. You can set the position. You can pretty much set all of these. There are some properties which are non-changeable. So, for example, what would be a non-changeable? I don't think there is any here, but under lighting, this technology one, you cannot change. So if I do game.lighting.technology, you can see it's not showing up because it's not editable. So if I try to do technology equals 1, and we try to do that, you can see technology is not a value of lighting, but it's right there. We can't edit it though, and Roblox already takes that into consideration. So, that's that. Just some notices here is that you cannot change properties of the core GUI items in Roblox. You have to do some other methods to actually break security and all that, but we won't go into that. But usually there is protected instances, which is a term for it. You have protected instances or Roblox locked instances, which you cannot edit. And you can't see them here because they're disabled. That's what the other studio options are. So under our, what was it? Script editor? No, studio. So under our hidden objects, if I show you these ones you generally cannot change. You can't set properties or anything. So that's the message it comes up with. You lack the security for it. So, yeah, so you can't really change these ones, but you don't need to anyways. You only need to change the stuff which actually affects the game, or your game, which are the ones here. So, yeah, there's properties and everything. Some of them might have properties, some of them might not. It just depends on what you're looking at. So like Replicated First doesn't have properties, but it does have functions. So make sure you check the wiki first, because some of these do have functions that are hidden. And yeah, hope you learned something, especially about the colors. Hopefully I made sense in it. And I'll see you in the next video, which should be the... It's like vectors, but might move on to module scripts right away. So I'll see you then. See you in the next video.